Hello, 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 beautiful stars. Good to see you. I almost forgot I need to put my mic in front of me. Happy Friday night. It is August 16th, 2024. I am Courtney, host of Stars of the Morning Light. I am normally never live at this time of day. It is about 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I am going to do Edgar Cayce Life Skills Study. We are going to be in the secrets of the universe and how to use them. We're in actually a wonderful, delightful spot in this book. Tonight we will be talking about the chakra system. Go figure, in relation to Jesus. So this is going to be a fun time, everyone. I see that Seeker of Truth came into the chat. Thank you, dear Seeker. She is my moderator. So welcome, everybody. If you're new here, consider subscribing. We have a great community here. And we are all about Edgar Cayce and the Akashic records for the most part. And there's also esoteric tea and some fun stuff to look at. I am, for you regulars here, I am going to start going live again on August 30th. My Friday mornings again. My Friday mornings live at 11. I will be doing that on August 30th. It has been way too long since we've been able to wake up with each other on Friday morning and prepare for the weekend. Normally, during that time, on Fridays, I would pull from my sacred geometry deck a card for us. So I'm going to do that now to kind of prepare people that we are going to kick it back into gear Friday mornings together again, August 30th. And I see that Lori came in the chat. Good to see you, my dear. I do try to say hello to everyone that comes into the chat. If you are listening, consider joining the chat. If not, enjoy. The card I picked, well, the card picked, or the deck picked for us, has come out quite a bit in our times together. But it's the most amazing card for me. It's beautiful and wonderful, and the patrons of Stars of the Morning Light would totally understand this. Number 23, dynamic. The frequency of dynamic supports our ability to harmonize between layers and aspects of different origin and frequency. It helps us to put together a reality that is made up of many different elements, both familiar and completely new, with ease, grace, and great joy. I'm going to hold this card up and try to have the camera focus. There we go. Dynamic. That is a powerful, powerful sacred geometry. And lovely beings, actually, this card for tonight, as we approach the secrets of the universe and how to use them, the section that we are in is, how was Jesus a master? Like, what made him different than us? Or what can we do that he did to become a master? And this card right here, as I'm holding this up, oh my goodness, the patrons of Stars of the Morning Light completely understand where I'm going with this. I teach there twice a month. Come and join us there. You are that beautiful sacred pyramid. You are. You are the pyramid of self ascension. I teach that. The pyramid of self ascension. And all of this, all these little spindles around, could be seen as your chakra system moving correctly, moving smooth and correctly, as we are going to discuss tonight, to become a dynamic master. I will read again. The frequency of dynamic supports our ability to harmonize between layers and aspects of different origin and frequency. That sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Supports our ability to harmonize between layers and aspects of different origin and frequency. It helps us to put together a reality that is made up of many different elements, both familiar and completely new, with ease, grace, and great joy. That's wonderful. You beautiful stars. You are dynamic. Very, very, very much so. So, before we begin in the book, for anyone who is new here, there is an Edgar Cayce life skill study playlist, and we are on video 39, which is actually my lucky number. So, hopefully, this will go well. Um, I either do an episode on his biography as I go much further in depth, compare it with my own life story as an Akashic reader, and also for everyone else, like, hey, can you find the similarities in your life as people's gifts start to present themselves to to the world, really, and or we're in one of his materials. Now, sometimes I read word for word, sometimes I paraphrase, sometimes I read a section. It really depends on the copyright laws of that material. Now, the book that we are actually reading from was published in 1989, and so the copyright within it in this material um, has nothing against me reading it to you. I'll see how much I read tonight. It is gonna be a great discussion. I see Jackie J came into the chat. Good to see you, my dear. I wanna talk briefly, just a little bit about Edgar Cayce to get everybody on the same page. But please go to that playlist and enjoy yourself. Learn about that man. Learn about how he's just like the rest of us. So that means that in many ways, we can also access the Akashic. I actually had that in a that question in a in-person class where I was talking about Edgar Cayce and the Akashic just a few weeks ago. And someone posed the question as to what makes him different. Well, yes, was he gifted? Did the Akashic come very naturally because he didn't even know what he was doing? Yes, but that does not mean that he wasn't human. That does not mean that he didn't have struggles and strife. That did not mean that he had to learn about his own abilities, as so many of us do, right? He didn't know what all was going on. One thing, though, that he, as a sleeping prophet, that he is known for, he also is known for being a psychic that was a devout Christian. So when we read stuff sometimes in the material, it is referring to Jesus. Y- What is fascinating about that is he was a very devout Christian, and he even went as a child wanted to be a pastor. He wanted to serve humanity in a great way, and in his opinion, that was the right way growing up. When folks found out he could do this wonderful, receive information, let's say, because they didn't really understand what was going on either, he came to understand and accept his gift and use that to serve humanity. But he still remained to be a devout Christian. It was not until later in life when people were recording his readings and asking the questions to the Akashic that was delivering them through his body, his body of form, did they start venturing into asking questions that were different than just medical questions, like in his readings about Atlantis or his predictions that everybody can watch videos about his predictions of 2024. They started asking him all these questions. in his own readings after he kind of came to and they said, "Whoa, this is what you said and you're barely ever wrong." They would ask things like reincarnation. They would ask about aliens. They would ask about um aspects of the Bible. And so that is where we are in the section tonight in the secrets of the universe and how to use them. Is we're going to be talking about how was this Christ figure, this Jesus, this Christ figure, the Christos, right? How is this body of form, this man who lived, become a master? Because if he can do it and he's trying to tell us that we can do it, which was the whole message of his sermons, that we can do it too. How do we do this? And what's fascinating is this book is written by a woman who was commissioned to take tons of his readings and try to compile them all together and connect the dots and, break down a lot of what he was saying. So this poor woman, she had a lot of material to go through. And the main focus of where we're at is how did Christ become a master through using his senses of his body and opening and using the chakra system, which Edgar did have readings about in regards to Christ being a master, right? In today's world, we focus a lot on this. That's what a lot of people talk about in the aspect of self-ascension, becoming a master alchemist, or a master this, or a master that. And we're all striving to become a Buddha or Christ consciousness, or whomever the master may be in your particular ideal. Another popular one is that you are a master. Like, think of all the conversations about your higher self. Well, you can embody your higher self. You can have your higher self embody into this body of form that you are, walking around in. So there doesn't have to be any of this interplay or inner exchange between higher self, lower self, who's myself, right? We can incorporate it all, hence becoming like a master. And I do want to point out that Christ, um, he operated in seventh dimensional consciousness. It was not five. Many people think that five is the Christ consciousness. It's not. It's the entire 5D is the frequency and energy that can support you becoming the master of 7D, right? That's what 5D really is. It's the frequency and energy of compassion that supports your ability to walk and operate in this body of form as a ascended master, where you can take two fish and feed 5,000 people, where you can heal, where you can do all sorts of things. That is seven dimensional consciousness. So there you go. That's some fun little things to think about as we move forward. And this is a somewhat of a small section, but I'm going to try to expand upon it. And I apologize, folks. It's getting very hot under these lights. So if I start to squirm a little bit, I I forget that these lights are very hot, especially when I have to turn them up to read. So I see Lori and Jackie and Seeker in the chat. Thank you, ladies, for coming. Have fun. Take this in. Um, everyone, enjoy. And if you're watching this later, consider subscribing. Lucky Stone 888 and I are doing this little project that will continue called Esoteric Tea on Friday nights at 8 p.m. It is, at least the goal right now is for me to receive 500 subscribers so we can go live on my channel as well. I'm only like 50 away, folks. I'm only 50 away. So consider subscribing. And I will try to do my best to get more material out there. Once again, I am going to start my Friday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time again on August 30th. That was always a good time. We did so many different topics there. Mostly that's when I would do the emerald tablets. But there's so much to talk about, so we will have fun. All right, so let's get into it. How did he become a master? So we're talking about the crystals. It is too simple to say he knew himself to be the Son of God. Therefore, he could work miracles. What made him so special? What did he do that we don't? It was the way he used his senses. Trying to be like him without using our physical senses is like trying to blow up a half balloon. He projected himself into a human body with 5 senses and 7 spiritual centers, just like ours. As a human, he was working through 12 faculties, as outlined previously, as we do. So she's about to go into the 5 physical senses that we have, but then the layer of the chakra system. He had the senses of sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. He had the 7 chakras that were connected to the pineal, pituitary, thyroid, thymus, adrenals, ad, adigs, Leydig cells, some kind of cells we got, folks, and the gonads. He worked with 7 physical systems as we do. So she's going through all this stuff: circulatory, nervous, respiratory, digestive. Remember, because Edgar is so funny, because Edgar, for a good portion of the beginning part of all of his readings were all medical. It's like Edgar kind of ended up just always using medical terms for everything. So we understand this. We are way more advanced. The whole point of um starting the Edgar Cayce series well ago was because I was trying to bring what was 100 years ago into 100 years forward. So do know a lot of his readings, and I have a ton of Edgar Cayce material. A lot of his readings were very detailed and medical, very detailed and precise. Um, but you got to think of the time. The average person on the street in 1902 did not know about our nervous system and our thyroid and all this stuff. The average Joe on the street. So she's what this writer does often is very much literally dictate his readings. That's why there's so much medical terms. We don't need to go through that. What we need to do is we need to talk about the 5 senses first. Your body, everybody's body, to whatever degree your senses work in your life now. Most of us not watching this is not a fresh new babe. Oh, to be a fresh new babe and have all the senses, right? What I will tell you is when you do practice sustaining a 5D consciousness frequency by viewing that every situation, every everything in life is an opportunity to practice compassion, your senses can heighten. Lucky and I actually spoke about this when we were live on his channel, Lucky Stone 888, last Friday. when he presented that he's popped into 5 at some point, and he's like, "The flowers look brighter, the air smell." I think said the air smells fresher. That every your senses, your hearing, your sight, your all of it, your taste, that it all heightens, right? So we're gonna start with that because she's using this um, in a fascinating way to explain how he used his senses to be who he is, to be Christ, to use them in ways that we tend to not think about. So first she goes into sight. He condemned the Pharisees for not seeing or being able to discern the signs of the times. The Bible carried hundreds of references to eyes, such as having eyes seen yet not. Blessed are the eyes that see. Lift up your eyes and look, which most of us know this. Most of us have heard something in that regard. My teachers would say, um, have your eyes on the divine at all times, right? Have your eyes on the divine at all times, which is very much lift up your eyes and look. Um, Sight. Regardless if you're psychic or not and you have a seer gift, your sight, just your natural birthright of sight, is a beautiful sense that is within this human body that you can use for all of it to discern the signs of the times. Blessed are the eyes that see. So we know that Christ would travel. That was one of the most unique things about him. Buddha traveled a little bit, Mohammed traveled a little bit, but he was definitely, I'm going to travel from town to town to talk with these people and show these people so they can witness, they can see, they can see miracles, right? When we witness miracles in others, when we witness God, graciousness, compassion in others, it shows us readings for people and they what's my purpose? Oftentimes they're already living it. We like to think of our purpose as this very big grand thing when in actuality many people are already living their quote unquote purpose because by the way they live, others are witnessing that change can happen. Others are witnessing that we can choose compassion over hatred, compassion over greed, right? We can choose all these beautiful things. And so when we're living in beautiful choice, others can witness and see. I love that he always said when he would travel into different towns, and I will tell you, I want to point out right now that Mary Magdalene was actually the one, and we learn this in the Nag Hamadi's scriptures and even the Dead Sea Scrolls. We learn that Mary Magdalene was the one who chose where they went to next. And the other disciples, the men, did not like that. They did not understand why Mary was the one who could make those kind of decisions. She would be the one that turned to Christ and would go, I think we got to leave this one. I think we got to go. Let's go over here. And all the men would go, no, 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 we want to go here. And she was confronted once with it. Why does he trust you more than us? And the way she responded, I do not have in my memory as of right now, but it was simple and it was lovely. And so just know that. That's a little side note as to Mary Magdalene was actually the one that Christ trusted to guide him in his decisions as to stay or go and where to go. That's very powerful and that's very wonderful. They had a very intimate, loving, endearing relationship, and they probably were married. I see Mary Wins came in. Good to see you, my dear. Speaking about Mary, good timing, darling. I even, I'm going to speak, I'll say this one more thing about sight. Um, you guys might not know this. As I am connecting with the Akashic, I breathe something, I do stuff, and I say stuff to connect with the Akashic. And one of those things is that I say, I have eyes to see and ears to hear. And if we, regardless of the Akashic, that is the one of the most beautiful things that we can say for ourselves. What a powerful affirmation. I have eyes to see and ears to hear. If you're speaking to the universe, if you're speaking to spirit, however you want to refer to it, tell them. Like if you're asking to be shown something, if you want to witness miracles, to reinstill your faith in self, humanity, God, whomever, back it up with I have eyes to see and ears to hear, right? It's powerful and magical and wonderful. So that's a suggestion. We're gonna move on to the ears for the hearing, right? There are many references to ears as well. Approximately a dozen times the master said, "He that has an ear, let him hear." I was just talking about it. And oftentimes, in our broken society, in our broken world, and that's why I brought up Mary Magdalene. She very, very much had ears to hear and eyes to see. That we don't push things on people. If a human is closed off, then we let them have their journey, we let them have their life, we let them enjoy or not enjoy however which way they're going to. That's not our role, and that's the one of the most poignant aspects of the Bible that someone can learn, regardless of what position you're in. If you're a teacher, definitely. If you're a healer, definitely. If you are just a regular old Joe on the street, farmer, mechanic, nurse, whatever you are, truck driver, whatever you are, if a person is closed off and they do not have ears to hear and eyes to see, well, then you move on. Not in the sense of you completely drop them and get rid of them, especially if they're a family member or a friend. You move on from trying to pressure your ideals onto them. All in due time, we allow everyone to flow in their own journey. But then you find those that do. You find those that resonate with what you're saying and care about what you're saying and that you can learn off of, they can learn off of, right? 5 of the references to taste mention not tasting death. Hundreds mention eating and drinking. Hmm. 5 of the references to taste, so one of our senses, mention not tasting death. I had a video out for my patrons a few weeks ago where I had to bring this up. For those who might be mediums or those who may struggle with just a lot of negativity, right? In their lives by who they're around, especially if it's death energy. Um, Bless those who work in death energy, as in like our hospice nurses, that sort of thing. Bless them. Um, a human, a live, living, beautiful being human should not be in the energy of death for long periods of time. Unfortunately, though, we care for the dying, right? Most people are not afraid of death, they're actually afraid of the action of dying. With aspects like that, we have to get out and experience life then. We have to wash away the taste of death and experience life. So that and I know what they're referencing here. So one of them is that when I will tell you, when Christ would speak, you could be in any form of different scriptures. It could be the Dead Sea Scrolls, it could be the Bible, it could be what have you. When he or even sorry, I was gonna start going off on a tangent. When he spoke, there are many layers to what he would say. So when he would say things like, "Let the dead be with the dead, and the living be with the living," it was for all matters. It was for the energy, our human bodies that are alive and well and functioning should not be around the energy of death for long periods of time, right? It takes a toll on our physical body. Let the dead be with the dead and the living be with the living also implies what we just kind of said. If someone is closed off, if someone is negative, if someone is very distraught, we don't sit around with that distraught and that death type of thinking, that doom and gloom energy for long periods of time. There's many layers to what is always spoken by him. And so that tasting of death, at least 3 that are being mentioned out of that, 5 that she said, the 5 reference death, at least 3 of them is legitimately death that, as the story goes, he didn't die, right? The emphasis on you can conquer death. You don't have to taste it. That at least 3 of those that are mentioned of that 5 are definitely that exact thing that he was trying to say. Shelly in the chat just said, "Death isn't real, so how can you taste it?" It's that it's the reference of experiencing, because it's one of our senses, right? So we experience through our senses. It is funny. We experience through our senses. We witness through our sight. We know through our hearing. We taste, right? It's all these beautiful senses we have. So I did want to put that in there that when you read ancient texts of any kind, right? You could read, even if certain faiths don't believe that Christ was a master or that some believe he was a savior, they definitely believe, everybody for the most part believes that he was a prophet, at least, right? Right? Is that the Islamic faith? They believe he was a prophet. There is he's speaking in that material as well. Everybody's got to search without judgment, right? And what he says in that stuff is very fascinating. Okay. The master's apparently favorite way of healing was by touch. He touched and felt if he touched and felt if he had been touched, even the hem of his garment. I don't know if you guys know that story offhand. Um, I so there was he went into a town, they were traveling into a new town, and there was a woman there with an issue of blood. That's how they refer to it with as an issue of blood. In today's world, we would call it endometriosis. We would call it she couldn't stop bleeding. It could be any variations as what women go through, right? But she had an issue of blood. Um, she believed so wholeheartedly in Christ that as he was walking by, she just kind of reached out her hand and like slid down the bottom of his garment. Um, I'm trying to think of the Hebrew word for it right now. Oh my goodness, it's a prayer garment, and I can't remember the name of it. I used to actually own one. Um, it was for prayers. So oftentimes Jewish people, they would have this garment that they would actually put over their head, not just the cap, but over their head that they would pray under so nothing could come in. And then they would put it around and it would drape off of them. So just by touching the hem of his garment and him acknowledging someone's touching that, it said that she was healed. Here's the fascinating thing about this, and I'm pausing here a lot and not reading much because I really do want to expound upon these senses, okay? And it's a most beautiful story. The woman had what she thought was faith in him, right? So she reached out her hand and touched the garment. He then sensed someone's touching me. So it was this kind of collision, this kind of interaction, yet they did not speak to each other. It was just this interaction of him having a thought, someone's touching me, and her touching him in the faith. What's fascinating about that, and the majority of the healing that he would do, and that's why it's one of the best stories, because the majority of the healing that he would do, people would ask him to heal them for whatever reasons, various reasons. I mean, he just went in and was healing people for multiple reasons. The majority of the time, they would ask him, and do you know how he would actually respond? He would respond with, heal yourself. He would respond with, do you have faith? This is the stuff that you do have to read different scriptures to find out, just so everyone knows. This is why I do know this stuff. That's the majority of the time, that's how he responded. He would either respond with, like, "You can do it. Why don't you just heal yourself?" Or, "Do you have faith?" He was not implying faith in him, and that's the biggest controversy of them all. When you read, especially like the Nag Hammadi scriptures, when you read that, he is clearly drawing out that you can do it yourself, and when he asks, "Do you have faith?" He's asking, "Do you have faith in yourself?" Same with, so that's how the majority of the healings actually went. What was fascinating about the woman with blood, and that's why many people preach about it, but they do it in a still a she had faith in him. The point was is that she had such faith that she would be healed. Period. Such faith that she would be healed. It wasn't so much having the faith in him or the prayer shawl. It was having the faith that she would be healed. And that's the faith that is always talked about in all of scriptures. And this is why it's devastating when you read all this stuff because it's the question over and over and over again. And all of the healing that is documented in different scriptures, it's legitimately the same thing over and over again. Do you have faith? Do you have faith? Do you have faith? It is faith in the self. Do you have faith that you will be healed? Do you have faith in the power? Right? Same with when they're out in the boat and he turns to Peter and he's like, okay, then walk on water. Just get out of the boat. Yeah, there's a storm and you're afraid of sinking. Get out of the boat and just walk. And Christ gets out of the boat and he looks back at Peter and he's like, come on, man. And Peter's like getting up enough nerve to walk on water. And man, the moment he's about to put his foot down, his faith dropped completely. Completely. And of course, he fell in the damn water. That was the point. That is the continuous point. That was the continuous point. The whole point of that story is Peter, don't you have faith in yourself? Can't you? You can do what I do, walk on water. There's no difference between you and I, is what Christ said all the time. That's what the material we're working in right now. It's fascinating stuff, folks. Fascinating stuff. So, he didn't care to smell burnt offerings. Instead, he preferred the sweet smelling sacrifice. As the crowds pressed on him, he could smell the stench of sickness, and he healed as many as asked. So she was using smell there, as in when they say the sweet smell of sacrifice, please understand they're actually talking about the animal. Um, when he would go into these towns and there'd be a ton of sickness, he could smell it more so than others. He could all of his senses were much heightened. As people point out, when they experience at least sustaining 5D for a while, that is a definite thing. The master exemplified the opening of the 7 centers, which are, according to Cayce, located throughout the endocrine. Oh, I can't even say these words. The chakras. She's about to go into the chakras. She goes into. I'm just kind of looking at where I'm headed, folks, in the book. Okay. So she's going to go into the chakras, but the way she does it is interesting. So she's about to talk about the first chakra. He demonstrated his instinct for survival when he pulled away from the crowds, and again when he prayed for the cup to pass. This instinct is associated with the first chakra, located in the groin or base of the spine. He demonstrated his emotional nature when he wept and when he got angry. This nature associated with the second chakra located in the lower abdomen, representing the polarity of the masculine and feminine within himself. was demonstrated by his birth and then again when he turned the water into wine at the urgings of his mother. So what she's saying is he took his five senses. As he used them, and she's going to jump right into the chakra system. There's like no interplay with this jump that she does. As he's using them, his chakra system is actually open and flowing as well. So, what she's saying is in relation to the chakra system, he's using his five senses that are attached to the same things: his physical, his emotional, his mental. So, she's using examples. Not the best for those who have been here before. I don't care for the writing particularly in this book, but that is fine. So we know the first chakra for most people is about it's survival, shame, guilt, that sort of thing, right? Mostly it's there for survival. It's where our fear lives. It's the root chakra. So she's saying he demonstrated using his senses. He used the energy from that to pull away from the crowd, like, whoa, this is getting dangerous. Survival, having discernment. He prayed for again, when he prayed for the cup to pass. His instinct is associated with the first chakra. So I believe the cup that they're probably talking about here is more the concept of, oh, you have thousands of people that need to eat. They do need to survive. Okay, we feed them. So taking what we interpret as a negative, what we interpret as scary, the word survival, right? The word survival. Because all of his channels, his spiritual channels are open, sensors is what Cayce would call it, sensors, centers, I should say, centers, sensors, centers, channels, chakras. What we interpret as scary, the word survival, because we live very comfortable lives, right? What we interpret as that, he actually was using for his benefit and others. He was using that first chakra that is usually in most humans polluted, blocked, full of fear. So it's not even being able to be used appropriately. He could use it appropriately. Whoa, there is actual probably danger here. Let me pull back. I don't want to be stoned right now, right? Um, oh, there are a lot of people that need to be fed. Let's feed them. Let's have this cup continue to be overflowing so people can hydrate themselves. He used survival for actually creating miracles and demonstrating, which remember, demonstrating and manifesting literally mean the same thing. For demonstrating all these wonderful things to people so they could witness it and know that they could do the same thing based out of their awareness of survival. So it's essentially actually not a bad thing. That chakra is there to help us to identify those things. We need water, have that cup continue to overflow. We need food, take 2 fish and feed 5,000 people. This crowd is angry. I'm going to pull back because they do not have eyes to see and ears to hear. I'm going to remove myself and move on. That's how that should be working. That's how it should be. Then she goes into the second one, which oftentimes in the Bible, definitely the Bible, they talk about how spirit, the heart, consciousness even, is more in the guts than anything. And when I say heart, I mean like what we care about. Our desires, our what we care about, all of it is actually in the guts. They mention the guts a lot, especially Christ does. He's always talking about the guts. What he's talking about is that second chakra. He demonstrated his emotional nature when he wept and when he got angry. His nature associated with the second chakra located in the lower abdomen, representing the polarity of masculine and feminine within himself. That is where the masculine and feminine completely come together. That's where we make babies there. That's where we make the babies. That's where they come from. That's where they grow. That is also where creation within us lies. But that's also where our emotions tend to lay. Our emotions, right? So if we think about that, and I'm trying to talk about this based off of what is written in this book. I can talk about it in so many various ways, but I'm trying to use the book. We have that first chakra. In today's world, we understand that as survival, fear, shame, guilt. Second chakra, we understand that as that's also shame, or that's guilt usually, right? Um and then there's the third chakra, which I've talked about chakras a million times on a lot of shows. Then there's this third chakra that we're going to talk about, which is our powerhouse. I tell people that your ego's there. So what I do also teach, and I guess I will go off on this, take intuition. Intuition is more of feminine in nature, but all humans have intuition. So think we have our need to survive right at our base because we do need to stay alive. To achieve anything, we have to stay alive, right? We have that right at our base. The second chakra, that is actually, in my humble opinion, how I describe things, that's where our intuition actually lives. That's where our creation lives. And creation usually is sprung out of intuition, right? Something's kind of calling to us, right? Saying, do this, be creative, go create. That is sprung, that lives our intuition, so more feminine in nature that everyone has, lives within that second chakra. Then you have your third chakra, your solar plexus. That is your powerhouse. That's your core. That is also more masculine. That is the center of you that ables you to do all this stuff in order to survive and create. Also, but that's where the ego lives, in my humble opinion of how I describe things. So the ego and the intuition, those are like brother and sister of each other. They really are. In most of scripture pertaining to what Christ said, he would always be talking about the guts, okay? Because he's trying to get people to understand your emotions are there, but your emotions are always attached to your intuition. Your power, your core, your solar plexus, that is not necessarily attached to your intuition. Our logic is not attached to intuition all the time, but our emotions are always usually attached to intuition, which is great because it's the intuition that really kind of pays attention to what's going on with that root and says, yeah, 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 you got to go. Don't get stoned in this crowd here. Yeah, 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 you got to go. Many people do not listen to their intuition. Many people do not pay enough attention to their emotions that are attached to that intuition trying to tell them something. So when she talks here about Christ demonstrated his emotional nature via the second chakra when he wept and or when he got angry. Everybody wants to use the story of when he flips the table over in the church, in the temple, excuse me. uh, they always want to use that. The concept there of why he did that was because they were collecting taxes inside of the temple. Inside of the temple, that's unheard of. He walked in not expecting that at all. That I don't know if that's never been heard of. And I also want to point out that if you when you read the Dead Sea Scrolls, it very much wouldn't have been there. When we in today's world dress in our Sunday's best, that actually would have never been allowed. Back then, when you go to temple, you actually would wear rags, or you were supposed to, I should say, wear rags. So then everybody, it didn't matter if you were a Pharisee, it didn't matter if you were a soldier, it didn't matter if you were homeless, it did not matter if you were a prostitute or a mother and father, wealthy businessman, it did not matter. Everyone was supposed to go to temple wearing rags. So then at temple, everyone would be on the same playing field, let's say. They would be in the same regard. In today's world, we wear it's literally titled, or the saying is Sunday's best. That is so not what temple would be. So if we can put it into that regard of like, we're supposed to be all, at the same level, wearing all rags, being humbled by walking into the temple and thinking that that's going to be what you walk into, and all of a sudden there's a table in the front that it is actually them collecting taxes in that area. Yeah, he got mad. He got mad, right? But a lot of people use that story very much out of context because they don't have the full scope of the context, right? Um, to demonstrate, well, he wasn't practicing love, he wasn't practicing kindness. He was. He was. In that position though, because it was the tax collector, he did have to kind of cause a scene. He or he wouldn't have been heard, right? He needed to be seen and heard, so he needed to kind of cause a scene to completely eliminate something that was vastly, vastly horrible at that time going on in a temple. And those who think that, well, 7D consciousness, which would be the Christ consciousness, 7D, not 5, would not get angry. That's that's not that's not that's not true. When they are living here in this body of form in 3D. If you have 7D consciousness and you are not living here in 3D, you're in hopefully the new earth. You are maybe traveling all over the cosmos doing whatever you're doing. That might be a different story. But when you are experiencing living and participating in 3D life, you are going to have pockets and moments of anger, especially when it's out of protection of those that you love, those that you care about, when it is a very definite wrong, right? You're going to experience that. But many people use that one particular story. It's so funny. They use that one particular story to kind of slam the Christ consciousness, to slam that, see, or to justify their own anger and actions for a lot of just familiar stuff. They don't put it in the context that that had never been seen or done ever, and that it was so far removed from the Torah, which is the Old Testament, so far removed from anything in Deuteronomy where all the rules are, right? So far removed that in order to have people witness that this cannot happen in a sacred place, there had to be a spout of anger that is demonstrated. And it worked. It worked. So people use that to justify themselves, justify their own righteous anger, right? For all little pitiable little things. Or they use that to slam him as in, well, he wasn't the all loving and you know, divine God as they say he is. That's not accurate either. That's not accurate. So I just really wanted to point that out as in the demonstration of anger as they're referencing here happens for even the masters when they are experiencing and trying to live within the 3D. It will happen. We need to have more understanding and discernment as to what was going on. Seeker just asked, were there other times that he got angry? Yes. Yes. Um, for the most part, for the Mary Wins just said sounds like the Vatican. Exactly. That would be for though I'll get to you in a moment, Miss Shelley, Seeker of Truth, with what you said or asked. Mary Wynn said it sounds like the Vatican. Exactly. When you read Dead Sea Scrolls, the Nag Hammadi, if you start getting into the scene, which is who Christ studied under, right? Um, the Vatican is such the far opposite of what everything was intended for. That is why we have the lines of, when there's two or more together, I am there. Like he started stressing that even more so after he saw what was going on in the temple, right? I'm under a rock. And then later in history, and especially US history, we get a lot of during the existential time period, or uh you get the Emerson that's repeating the same thing, the Whitman, all these poets that are saying, even under a rock, there is God. They were understanding those principles, opposed to the Vatican. Yes, Shelley, there were other times that he got angry. And I will say the majority of when he got angry was based on his frustration with his own disciples, his frustration with like we were just talking about when he would say, "Do you have faith?" He would even get frustrated when those people would start to respond, "Yes, I have faith in you. I have faith in you. You are the Son of God. You are the Son of God." Oftentimes, and this isn't, you're not going to find it in traditional Bible. Oftentimes, that would get him upset because that was not what he was asking. He would legitimately turn to them and say, "I never asked you, do you have faith in me? Do you have faith?" Or he would get upset with the disciples, like Peter in the boat that he just said. When he turned to Peter and said, "Do you have faith?" And Peter said, "Yes." And he's like, "Walk on the water then." This is, and then Peter completely just fell in the water because he got scared. Um, there was a talk after that. Every time when he would say things like, you know, "It only takes a mustard seed." Do you know what kind of tone he probably had? He what kind of tone in his voice did he have to have when he was like, "It literally only takes you a mustard seed of faith to do this." Wow. Like, yeah, he would get frustrated with his disciples more than anything because apparently he wouldn't get as upset with like John, because John really was trying to understand more, it, as far as like the esoteric scene aspect of it. Um, but yeah, he would get frustrated mostly by other people's faith that was never supposed to be towards him. That was the big issue. You got to explore, folks. You got to explore what's out there. It's not just one. Um, there's multiple variations of certain stories that you can read all the multiple, or at least few different variations. Kind of like, how you have like in the standard Bible, like Luke and Matthew, all of those, they kind of tell some of the similar stories, but they do it with their own taste. Like Luke is very kind of black and dry because he was a lawyer. So he's very black and dry. This is what happened. This is, when Matthew and would write stuff that would be more story, a really good prose, right? You can find stories that are in the Bible in other areas, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Nag Hammadi, that sort of thing. Um, and then you compare and contrast, and it's fascinating. You can see what was more of the intended purpose for those stories. He demonstrated his use of force or power, sometimes called the thinking nature, when he gained his self awareness at the age of 12. His nature is associated with the third chakra, located in the solar plexus. So, once again, his power, his force, more masculine energy, his ego also is in that third chakra. But what's beautiful about what they're saying here, when he gained his self awareness at the age of 12. Oftentimes, what can help that ego subside and work in accordance with the intuition so we can live healthy instead of just uh, intimidating ego talking to other intimidating egos, or scared egos, I should say, is the self awareness. The self awareness. He demonstrated human love and sympathy, often associated with the reasoning nature, when he blessed the woman at the well. This nature is associated with the fourth chakra, located in the heart. He demonstrated his creative nature when he made the decision to feed the hungry. This nature is associated with the fifth chakra located in the throat. So what's interesting is many people will refer to the second chakra as your creation chakra. When she is referencing here, he demonstrated his creative nature when he made the decision to feed the hungry. He used his throat chakra, to call the food into being. Feed 5,000 with 2 fish. Okay. Fish, you are now 5,000, right? Whatever he might have said. He used his power of word, that is creation, as if you do follow that kind of scripture. They say that the first thought in the Nagamati would be the first thought. In the Bible, it's called the word. If you use that power, right? If you use that power of the word, you can create anything. That's your fifth chakra. He demonstrated his spiritual nature, the higher mind, and the integration of the intellect and intuition, or logos, when he knew he would be betrayed. This nature is associated with the sixth chakra, located in the center of the brain. I think you all are smart and understand what that meant. The five senses and seven centers represent, in Sanskrit tradition, the spokes of the wheel. Each of the 12 spokes extend to a point of contact with the ground of oneself and propels us forward in our understanding of the secrets of Jesus as the master of masters. Before I go on, I'm going to hold up the card that we looked at the beginning, dynamic. It just said in Sanskrit, the spokes of the wheel, dynamic. I'm going to hold this sacred geometry card back up as I teach in the pyramid of self ascension. You are a pyramid. Do those not look like spokes of a wheel, as if the chakra system is represented as spokes of a wheel in Sanskrit? You are a pyramid. Isn't that the most fascinating? And isn't a master very dynamic? Right? I'll read it again. The frequency of dynamic supports our ability to harmonize between layers and aspects of different origin and frequency. It helps us to put together a reality that is made up of many different elements, both familiar and completely new, with ease, grace, and great joy. He demonstrated his Christ nature when he healed the sick. This nature, associated with the seventh chakra, is located behind the forehead. The five senses, seven centers, represent, in Sanskrit, we just read this, the spokes of the wheel. Each of the 12 spokes extend to a point of contact with the ground of oneself and propels us forward in the understanding of the secrets of Jesus as the master of masters. The method of prayer suggested by the master opens the seven spiritual centers in a particular order. Psychic ability, she did put that in quotations. Psychic ability is the natural result. Each morning, the sun reminds us that light dawns slowly. After application, Cayce stressed balance above all else. Otherwise, psychic powers could signify imbalance rather than soul development. In the extreme, imbalance within the spiritual centers or the senses on one or more of the three levels causes symptoms of the mental derangement experienced by psychotics, such as hearing voices, or schizophrenics, as we would call them. So, what she then jumped into, she does not use any segues in any of this material, this author. She is about to start talking about the Lord's Prayer and how it's related to actually the chakras. This is the fascinating part of all of this. So, thank you for bearing with me. She's trying to say, though, if we can open up these chakras using them appropriately with our five senses, our five human senses, and everything's flowing correctly, everything's in and flowing, we can obtain and use psychic abilities. And it would be those quote unquote, as she put in quotations, psychic abilities that would produce feeding 5,000 people with 2 fish, that would produce having really true eyes to see and ears to hear, right? All that stuff. But then Cayce would iterate with, once that happens, though, this is all, once that can be achieved, and it takes balance to achieve it, you also then have to maintain balance, because oftentimes, if a human is not balanced, if that chakra system is all clouded and full and gunked and not flowing, the energy is not flowing appropriately, psychic abilities are maybe not abilities. They might just be more of a psychiatric problem, right? Psychiatric issue, I should say. We also, with us out there, as this is a life skills, please know that as well. So when you book a reading with someone or you're in conversation with someone, we must also have eyes to see and ears to hear for our own discernment, as in, is that person true? Is that person authentically open and balanced to receive? Right? I will say this is um, this is a little footnote, and I'll say it here. If you're new here, thank you for joining us, and consider subscribing. Most of the people like in the chat right now and who are listening that have been with Stars of Morning Light for a while, I have said this, I think, at 2 other times. What's fascinating is that human design stuff that's out there now. I don't know enough about it. There has been interviews with Sarah Leverett in the interview playlist with Sarah. I came to find out, and I wonder if Cayce was actually kind of the same. Edgar Cayce was such a good-natured human. He even as a child, he had more self-awareness, awareness of what was going on around him, and he was also not intimidated to address things that needed to be addressed. Even in the regard of walking up to, I don't know, an adult that he barely knew and say stuff like, "Are you okay? You doing all right today? What's going on?" And for some reason, that adult would just start talking to him, just letting it out, right? In today's world, oftentimes when we see things like that, we see it as codependency. We see it as people pleasing. We see it as all these things, because in the majority of people, that is accurate. I will say that human design thing, I came to find out that I came into this world with basically all of my channels open. How it was explained to me is they're reviewing everything and looking at this from my root chakra all the way up and back down again. I came in this life with all of it open and flowing. So I have an direct contact with the divine at all times because I came into this life. Now, I don't know if it's because I set it up that way. I don't know if it's something that you do have to work towards, as people talk about this, the lessons of life in many of your reincarnated lives. But what I am thinking after I did some more research of the human design and talked more, I do think Edgar probably had the same thing going on. And that's why it was more natural for him to just access the Akashic, not even knowing what the Akashic is. In that respect, he also then would, because we're talking about the Christ consciousness here, would get angry. Yes, here and there, especially with his father. In times of crisis, did he know how to respond immediately? Yes. Unless it required him having to do a reading for like a loved one or something, then he would pause and think about that. That's more trusting his own gift. I guess those who have, as I have found out, come into this life born with it, channels are all open. How they respond is different. How they would respond to a crisis, they would automatically know how to handle it and jump to and just handle it. They would not have the fear attached like other people do. How they respond to other people, places, and things. They would automatically, because the heart chakra, the throat chakra, all these channels are open, they would see someone like Edgar did oftentimes with their eyes and their ears. They would notice, oh, I should go talk to that person, regardless of the age difference, regardless of knowing them very much or not, right? Regardless if they were a family member. So I do believe now that those who are maybe more inclined to healthy, balance psychic abilities were born with their channels, or what Cayce would refer to as centers, like energy centers, the chakras, were always kind of naturally flowing. That I it's kind of a new thing, because we usually just assume everybody's is blocked. We just assume. But when I learned that about myself and went through the whole thing with Sarah, everything she said was spot on, and I went, okay. And I also asked Sarah, I said, "Is this common to see?" Not like I'm trying to toot my own horn, and she said, "How would you toot your own horn, Courtney? You were born with this." I said, "Yeah, that's true." Um, she said, "No." She said, "No, I've never seen this." I think those, as there have been many in throughout history, that are naturally gifted without having to, work for it more, like Edgar, or who naturally were focused on not, gaining profit or use it to manipulate, I think their channels were open. In that regard, I'm bringing this up because we're about to read, and this section is kind of short. We're about to read how Cayce put together the Lord's Prayer in association to what chakras you were clearing, cleansing, opening up. It is fascinating. So do with it as you want. You can roll with it, not roll with it, do with it as you want. I think it's actually really beautiful because I am now understanding when I would say things like, well, easy peasy or have no fear. Not so easy for everyone. So when I'm also saying, "Hey, open up all those chakras, get them get that energy flowing," not so easy for everyone. And that's my misconception, my own ignorance based on my own experience. So I admit my faults, right? Right. Um, this is lovely though. So if you want to use this for a life skill coming from Edgar Cayce, why not? And then when you do start opening those chakras, getting that energy flowing, balance is the key. You have to balance your masculine and feminine. You have to balance your life. You have to balance your emotional, mental, physical. You have to be, as I hold the card back up, you have to be the pyramid of self ascension. You have to have such good balance to have such great sacred geometry like a pyramid where then nothing can touch you, right? As we all know, pyramids, no negative energy can enter a pyramid. Well, if you are one, it requires you to be balanced in that position to avoid all negativity. Yes, alignment. Yes. So, fascinating to compare the Lord's Prayer to the chakra system. I had never heard this done before, so I'm just going to read it, folks. The words of the Lord's Prayer enlighten, awaken, and balance each of the 7 centers by spreading energy throughout the physical body. So the Lord's Prayer uses to enlighten them, awaken them, balance the chakra system. Our Father, which art in heaven, balances the pituitary center located behind the forehead, also known as the third eye, associated with the 7th chakra. Hallowed be thy name, balances the pineal center, located in the center of the brain, associated with the 6th chakra. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, balances the thyroid center located in the throat, associated with the 5th chakra. Give us this give us this day our daily bread. Balances the groin center located in the groin area, 1st chakra. And forgive us for our debts as we forgive our debtors. Balances the adrenal center located in the solar plexus, your 3rd, your power. So forgive us for we know not what we do. And lead us not into temptation balances the 2nd chakra. But deliver us from evil balances the thymus center, also known as the immune system, located in the heart area, 4th chakra. For thine is the kingdom, returns the energy to the thyroid center, which is awesome because as we learn with videos with Dr. Benjamin Goins here, the thyroid is what actually has all the energy moving. That's why we speak. And the power returns the energy to the pineal center. And the glory forever, amen, returns the energy to the pituitary center. Jesus was telling us to do Jesus was telling us that to do as he did, we must possess the power he did. The prayer awakens, enlightens, and balances the secret power that is our natural heritage as brothers and sisters of the Son of God. I'm going to quickly do that again so you guys can hey Ziggy. This is a old copy of Edgar Cayce and the Secrets of the Universe and How to Use Them. I am right at the end of chapter 16. This copy was written in 1989. And good to see you. Good to see you. I'm going to just read them real quick, and that was the end of that chapter. So I'm going to rematch them up, okay? Because it is fascinating. I've never experienced this. I've never heard this before, but it is fascinating to think this way. So, our Father, which are in heaven, balances your third eye, right? Hallowed be thy name, balances the sixth chakra, the pineal center. So they were saying one is our Father who art in heaven balances the pituitary center, third eye, chakra, right? Hallowed be thy name balances the pineal center, sixth chakra. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, balances the thyroid center, so the throat. That's fascinating, guys. I do have to say that part is fascinating. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, balances the thyroid center, the throat chakra, the fifth chakra. Think about what we're saying when we say that. We're claiming that, right? We're claiming that heaven can be here. Give us this day our daily bread. Balances the first chakra, the root chakra. Give us this day our daily bread. Manna from the sky. Survival. Survival in a healthy way that we trust that we will live complete with our daily bread. That's beautiful. And forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Balances the solar plexus, the third chakra. That balances that ego that I was talking about that lives in the solar plexus. So it's not these strong, angry, hurt, scared egos talking to egos. It's an ego and power that says, I'm forgiven, you're forgiven. Forgive us for we know not what we do. Love us for we know not what we do. That's beautiful. And if that's our powerhouse, our core, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. That's beautiful. Solar plexus, third chakra. And lead us not into temptation. Balances the second chakra. All those guts that have all those emotions in that we were just talking about. That in some scripture actually refers to the consciousnesses in the guts because the emotions are there. A lot of what we experience remains there. As I spoke about, your intuition is there that's attached to all those emotions. Let's hear it again. And lead us not into temptation. Second chakra. But deliver us from evil. balances the immune system located at the heart, but deliver us from evil, balances the heart chakra. For, for thy is the kingdom, returns the energy to the thyroid center, your throat. For thy is the kingdom. And the power returns and the power, so it'd be for thy is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever, right? So for thine is the kingdom, returns energy to the thyroid. And the power returns the energy to the pineal center. And the glory forever, amen, returns the energy to the pituitary center. Jesus was telling us that to do as he did, we must possess the power that he did. So we must get those flowing. We must heal, 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 heal. We must have faith, 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 faith in ourselves. That's what a whole lot of this message was faith in ourselves. Oh, I'm reading the chat for just a moment. Faith in ourselves is the best faith to have because we are beautiful, divine beings. We really are. You lovely stars. I'm going to read the chat just for a moment. Ziggy said, the thyroid was taken out of my father's body, unfortunately. Do you think stem cells could grow him a new thyroid with technology today? Which part of the prayer was connected to the thyroid again? I will look back in the book, which is, I know it was definitely, and I'll look at it again, how heaven can be on earth. Oh, excellent. Yes, stay with Saint Germain and the violet flame, definitely. Let me look. The thyroid, for you lovely Ziggy, was connected, well, at the very end, for thy is the kingdom, right? Brings all the energy back flowing into the thyroid, but was really attached to the thyroid, which was great. And I thought very powerful. So the fifth chakra, the throat, was thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Meaning we can use that chakra, that thyroid, that really circulates everything throughout the body to create heaven here on earth with our power of our words. Now, do I think that they can grow your father a new thyroid with stem cell technology? I think they can. I mean, I don't know if that will happen for you and your family, but I do think that that is possible. That is up to your dad. I think the main thing is it maybe not, at least in this program of today, Ziggy, is to think more of it as an energy. That we might not need exactly the whole system of this body of form, all the parts to be present, if the energy is there and flowing well. That's what I do think. I do. And we'll, you can pass this on to your dad too about, hey, if you can talk, if you can breathe. I mean, remember that our breath is the sacred breath of life. No matter what we may have our faith in, your breath is the sacred breath of life and what we use with it throughout this entire body of form is the key to balance and harmony. It really is. So I'm hoping that everyone is doing well. Yeah. And thank you everyone for coming. Mary Wins, Ziggy, Seeker of Truth, Lori, Jackie J. I know you were all in the chat. Very interesting take on the Lord's Prayer there at the end. I know that I did all my ramblings, especially about biblical stories. I'm I was trying to put things into context of oftentimes um, those a part of, let's say, for lack of better terms, like a woo woo community, or are into psychic aspects or into esoteric things, we they tend to not want to discuss anything about Christ or even Christ consciousness. Um, And I do believe not only is it because of whatever may have happened in their journey or pocket of time within a possible church or growing up in one, it's more because of the misinformation of what the stories were intended for originally from the Christos, from the Christ consciousness trying to say, have faith. Period. He got more frustrated when people responded, "Yes, I have faith in you. I have faith in you." It drove him crazy. He would constantly correct them. It's not me to have faith in. You can have faith in God, and you got to have faith in yourself. It's not me. And we grew up in a world for many centuries now that created a narrative that we have faith in him. And so I am sure um, that's very disappointing. That's very disappointing, as in how disappointing he would be to just say, well, you don't even have faith of a mustard seed. He definitely didn't want us to have faith in him. So, so thank you for listening. And I hope you have a great, lovely week, and consider subscribing to Stars of the Morning Light. Ziggy, it's good to see you, my dear. Everybody, it was good to see you. Have a great weekend. What a fascinating story and idea to think about. To just think about. Your chakra system can lead to your master presence. Yes. And maybe soon, maybe August 30th, when I'm live Friday mornings again at 11 a.m., I will go even deeper into just the chakra system, because there's chakras that many people don't even know about, and then even beyond, that people can very much utilize to become that master presence here in this body of form, to be of service to all. So it is a thing that can definitely happen. So thank you all. Have a great time. Yes, Ziggy. I used to do at 11 a.m. Eastern time, and I'm going back to that on August 30th. So thank you for um, marking it down, because it's going to be a good time. Usually the topics on Friday morning would set the weekend great for everybody, and they were very powerful and in depth and great things to think about. So have a great weekend, folks. Enjoy yourselves. Get a little bit of sun and drink plenty of water, because you are shining brightly. Love y'all. Bye, guys.